eyes are red. A few tears for your long-lost boss?
Tears of joy. I hate job hunting.
Yeah, vacation's over.
Welcome home, sir.
Put up the scanner, will you? What happened over there?
I have my eyes open.
I want to protect the people I put in harm's way.
A man with a dozen of these can rule all of Asia.
Yeah, I can fly.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Good, The Bad, The Score. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Collin.
And today, well, I don't know about you, Collin, but I am super pumped because Collin and I have both decided that we are going to review the MCU universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
I am super excited. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of my favorite movie franchises, and I know it's your most favorite franchise of all time.
Oh, definitely.
I have top
It's
3
amazing.
movie franchises I love. Harry Potter, Star Wars, and of course the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This franchise to me is so unique in its own way. It's just something that we have never seen before in my lifetime of movies, where you just take a bunch of characters from their own movies like Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, and to put them together in one movie is just mesmerizing. And it's just mind-blowing how we see these movies progress in over 10 years. But today, we are going to talk about the movie that started all, Iron Man. This is the first of the Iron Man movies. It is also the first of Phase 1 and the beginning journey of the MCU. So, Collin, tell us about the first time you saw Iron Man. Before we get into the reviews, just tell us briefly what your experience of seeing that movie was.
So I remember I was so hyped to see Iron Man. I knew nothing about the character. At that point, in 2008, it was pretty much just Spider-Man, and I think I dabbled in X-Men, but really it was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. So I saw the trailer for the original Iron Man, and I thought I was like, this is very exciting. The next set of characters. I had no idea what even the Avengers were at that age, but I was so excited to see it. And I remember one weekend, the weekend it came out, my parents were like, we're not taking you to see Iron Man, we're too busy and all that. And I was devastated. I'm like, I need to see this movie. And I remember it wasn't until I think a couple weeks later where I got to see it in theaters at a friend's birthday party, and I was fallen in love with the movie. I thought at the time when I was about probably 13 years old, I had an absolute blast watching it. I even remember for the post-credit scene, which we'll address later on, but I remember it was the first time my friends were like, you got to stay for the after credits, and I was so like, why would I do that? I don't want to listen to names. And then when we'll get into the post-credit scene, even still I was like, what does that mean and all that? So this is the original Iron Man is such a movie that at the time it was well received, had great box office, but to think that this is the movie to start it all is quite amazing, I gotta say. So Andrew, what is your experience with Iron Man?
So funny enough, I did not see the post-credit scene in Iron Man. I had no clue it existed.
Really?
Until Avengers came out. I had no clue about it.
Oh my gosh, really?
I had no clue. So I didn't realize it till the end of Captain America, because I'm like, wait, why is Nick Fury and Iron Man and like Captain America? I'm like, oh, now I see what's happening. And I didn't even see the credits scene in Captain America.
That's funny.
So I didn't like, this was kind of like the beginning stage. I mean, you think about it too. Iron Man came out in 2008. Like, this was a time when, before the internet took over our lives,
Oh, yes, definitely.
This was a time before spoilers and hackers came into the game and, just spoiling everything, finding every leaks to scripts, early trailers. It wasn't like that. And I had no clue about it. I wasn't even, as any other person, I wasn't addicted to YouTube or social media at the time. I didn't even have Facebook. I didn't get Facebook till I was in high school. Yeah. But seeing Iron Man the first time, I had sort of kind of like yours. I didn't get to see it the first day it opened. It was sold out. And I had to wait the second weekend. So I went with my friend to go see it. And it was an incredible experience. And I'm really excited to talk about it. It was cool. It was awesome. It was a different type of superhero movie that I've never seen before, especially with Tony Stark, which I'm excited to talk about. So let's get into Iron Man. So Iron Man was released in May of 2008. It is directed by Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau has become a very well-known director for many movies like Elf, Chef, the Disney live-action remakes of Jungle Book and Lion King, and most recently, one of the creators behind The Mandalorian, right on Disney+. So, in Iron Man, we meet Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark is a multi-billionaire playboy who lives in a beautiful home in Malibu, California, has an awesome basement with some of the coolest technologies, nice cars, and he is also a party animal as well. But more importantly, he is like a rock star globally in this world. He is known more importantly by his successful business called Stark Industries. Stark Industries was founded by his late father, Howard Stark, and it's pretty much like a technology engineering business. They create the newest technologies for the environment, and they also make weapons for the U.S. military for the war. So Tony Stark travels to the Middle Eastern country to showcase his latest work called the Jericho. The Jericho is an advanced missile weapon, whereas Stark says it's a weapon that you should only fire once to defeat the bad guys. So the presentation goes well, but all of a sudden they get attacked by a group of terrorists and Tony Stark is captured by them. He's held captive in a cave and he notices that these terrorists have his weapons. And not only that, they want Tony to make the Jericho weapon for them. So he agrees to it, or so he says, and decides to create a new weapon of his own. One made out of iron. He creates Iron Man in that cave and eventually escapes. So now Tony realizes there are not only just bigger problems with his business, but in the world in general. So he finally decides to do what is right and justice by destroying the weapons that these enemies have of his, and also, most importantly, protecting the world. So, Collin, let us talk about the good of Iron Man. So what did you love about Iron Man?
Well, one thing about Iron Man that I feel like is important not to overlook is how, like we said before, this is the movie to start it all. At this point, we didn't have all the history with Tony Stark, S.H.I.E.L.D., and any of the Avengers. So this was the movie that really needed to set the groundwork for the entire franchise. So after how long? So it's been after 12 years of release, how does Iron Man hold up is really the question that I think needs to be asked. And honestly, I think it holds up really well. Maybe not to the same standards as the Marvel movies we get nowadays, but to think that this movie was the beginning of the greatest franchise of all time, the most highly successful franchise of all time, is quite amazing, especially how they had its lead actor Robert Downey Jr. In the title role. Everyone seems to kind of forget this, especially people who grew up with Iron Man, is that Robert Downey Jr. had a very steep decline in his career. He had troubles with alcohol and drug abuse. There's a time where no one in Hollywood would hire him. So that's where Jon Favreau kind of pushed for Robert Downey Jr. to be in this title role. And boy, did it pay off. You can't talk about Iron Man without mentioning Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. He is incredible in the title role. He has that very much that playboy jerk who literally doesn't care about anyone except himself. And especially how the story is told to where you first see the attack and then you go back to seeing what Tony was like before all this happened is quite impressive. I think the structure and the overall pacing of this movie, especially as it's an origin movie, it's really well done. I think that, especially how this was the movie to introduce Iron Man, I think this really changed the game when it comes to how to tell an origin story, how to have a main protagonist, and how to introduce them. Even Marvel would go on to repeat this with Doctor Strange and many of the other origin stories. So this is a movie that very much as there's been so many better MCU movies to come out since then, this is very much probably the most important MCU movie. Definitely one of, because I think as much as, again, this is a 12-year-old movie, I still think the action is fantastic. Jon Favreau's direction is superb, and I really think the entire cast, for the most part, does a very good job with their sympathetic or villainous performances. So, Andrew, what is some of the positives you have for Iron Man?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's so funny. You said Jon Favreau was superb. I literally wrote that down too before this, saying Jon Favreau did a superb job.
Nice thing alike.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, it's just so crazy to me. Like, even when I was watching, yes, because I mean, I've seen Iron Man movies, I've seen the Iron Man films before, but I haven't really sat down and watched the first one in a really long time. I mean, I've seen clips of it on TV, but I just never got the chance to sit down and watch it through it again. And I was glad I finally did yesterday. And this movie still holds up well to this day. Robert Downey Jr. kills it. He steals the whole show. He is, to me, probably hands down one of the best actors to be casted in a comic book movie, or even just in a movie in general. He is perfect for this role. He's funny. I love that he's a wise guy. He's just such a different protagonist in a comic book movie, unlike that we have seen before. Which, you know, because I feel like in a lot of movies, like in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, even like Superman and Batman, these characters are very serious. I mean, they're innocent characters, but they're very serious. And, you know, but like Robert Downey Jr. kind of plays Tony Stark differently. You know, he is a hero, but he's a wise guy. That's pretty much what he is. And I love that. I love that he's kind of like, he's an egomaniac and he only listens to himself, but he also has a lot of heart to this character too. So there's a lot of sympathy for Tony. And I thought the whole cast was really great. Gwyneth Paltrow was, you know, fantastic. It was crazy. I didn't even realize, it took me for like a couple seconds watching yesterday that was Jeff Bridges as Obadiah. I guess because of the
oh my gosh, yeah.
I guess because of the bald head. I forget he's in this movie, head. But he's also really good at this. He, you know, because we always see Jeff Bridges playing like these laid back characters. And it was great to see him, you know, playing a business, so to speak, type role. My favorite parts of the movie is just seeing Tony Stark creating the Iron Man suit, and that's always great. I love seeing that part. You know, like just seeing him testing it out and like testing the flying. I love that part where he's like blasting through the glass doors in his basement. That was a cool moment. And you know, like I said, this is a different type of superhero movie at that time that I felt like I haven't seen before, just particularly with this different character we were witnessing. The visual effects are great. I think it still holds up pretty well. I love the design of the Iron Man suit. I think it's really cool. Even like watching behind the scenes of how like they were going about the suit was really fascinating. The action scenes, like you said, are great. I love it. I love the music, by the way. I can't pronounce his last name, but the guy who the composer was, his first name was Raymond. But I love how the music is both rock and it's also instrumental as well. It really symbolizes that character, which I thought was great. And Jon Favreau, I thought, did a superb job, as we just said. He does a great job of introducing Iron Man, but also lighting the torch of this Marvel Cinematic Universe journey that we'll be seeing ahead. So that's pretty much my positives. So yeah. Do you have any other positives you want to say, Colin?
Well, one thing that I think is also important to consider is how there's so many movies out there that's trying to replicate the MCU formula to start the cinematic universe. Yeah. So if you think about it, Iron Man is worth comparing to The Mummy, Ghostbusters, all these other movies. I can't think of any other ones. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're so forgettable because they're trying to skip to like 5 years into the MCU's franchise when they always neglect that Iron Man was the one to start it off. And aside from some references to Shield and Agent Coulson in the movie as a side character, this is a very standalone movie. And I think that's something that everyone seems to forget is that Iron Man didn't start out with all these references to Avengers.
No.
They're there, obviously, but if Iron Man was the only movie to come out and they didn't make any other movies, it would have stayed on its own and it would have just been like Easter eggs with how they reference it. We'll get into how the MCU evolves from that, but it's very important to realize that all the things that we think the MCU is about, where it's setting up the next movies, a lot of different characters and Easter eggs to the Infinity Stones and all that. Iron Man didn't start with all that. It was just about Tony Stark becoming Iron Man, which I think is very important to notice. And I think that this movie deserves to be recognized as one of the greats of MCU. Maybe not top tier. We'll have to get into that as we get as we get further into our reviews for each movie. But this is very much one of the most important movies in the MCU.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's a very important movie. And, I love that it's, it's fun. And I like that it has its, serious moments as well. But yeah, just like you said, it's a really great movie. It's fun. It's got a good script, and it's just so crazy. I was just so I just did not know anything about this Avengers thing at that time. It's just so crazy. I didn't know anything about this. Like, it's just,
that's hysterical.
It is. But I feel like it was but it was so great though, being like, just realizing, but like, I didn't stay to the end of the credits. Like, I didn't realize like after phase 1, it was important to like stay at the ends of the credits when you're watching these movies. But this is absolutely one of my, we'll get on there later, but it's definitely, I think it's one of the best of the MCU films. All right, so I think we've covered the many things that we loved about Iron Man. So now let's talk about the negatives of this movie. So Collin, what were your negatives about Iron Man?
Well, some negatives about Iron Man, which is why, as much as I say this is one of the greatest, the most important MCU movies, I do think it does lack in these early stages of MCU movies, it lacks with its villain. As much as I think Jeff Bridges was great in the role as Obadiah Stane, sorry, that's a mouthful. I do think when he becomes Ironmonger, it's literally the beginning of Marvel's. We need to have the complete opposite of the art hero for the villain. And I think as much as he was very well developed in the first half, it all of a sudden, when he turns into the bad guy, it's like he just turns into the mustache twirling villain. So all that development strangely feels forgotten. Like, it doesn't feel earned, even though the movie does a great job building up Obadiah Stane as Tony's rival. I think honestly the final fight, really, out of anything in this movie, the final fight scene between Iron Man and Ironmonger is the thing that is the most outdated and kind of anticlimactic in my opinion. And unfortunately, Iron Man is one of the many cast changes in the MCU, with Don Cheadle as Woody Roach. At the time, I thought he was good in the movie, but looking back and seeing how much Don Cheadle does bring to the role, I do think Terrence Howard was the weaker link compared to the two. And especially how, as much as he does a good job in the movie, knowing how the character turns into Don Cheadle and how much more depth and how much more he gets to do in the later movies, it does feel a little distraction. It's like, well, we kind of got to get through this until Rhodey really comes out in Iron Man 2 and becomes the character he is. I'm trying to think of any other things. I would probably just say there's some times where the movie does go at a little snail's pace. I would say as much as the scene where uh, Tony is trying to get away from the Jets after bombing the village for all the bad people, it does feel a little like we needed an action scene at this point, which we just came off of an action scene. So that one was a little bit of like a unnecessary. I bet if you cut it out, as much as that's the scene where Rhodey learns about what Tony's doing, I do think it felt a little pointless. But other than that, I would say that my the rest of my complaints are very much nitpicky stuff. So anything I can dissect this movie and get all the flaws, but at the end of the day, this is just a very fun movie. So I just do think the villain's weak. It's a little distraction with Terrence Howard as Rhodey Rhodes at this point, and I think that's it. So Andrew, what are some of the negatives you have on the movie?
Okay, well, I was trying to figure out my negatives all day, and I honestly really couldn't think of any negatives. My only I just like my only nitpick, which I agree from what you said, was that the movie at certain moments felt a little bit slow, if that's what you were trying to say, because that's how I mean that's really my one negative. It kind of felt slow at certain parts. Maybe like the middle of the movie kind of felt a tad bit slow, but I mean that's really my only criticism. I mean, you do think about it, there isn't a lot of action scenes going on, but like when it does happen though, it is good. I mean, it's not a negative. I mean, I like movies that can balance, both talking and, bringing in the action at the same time. But yeah, that's really my negative, is just sometimes the pacing just felt a tad bit slow and it just needed to just pick it up a little bit. I personally didn't. I know a lot of people have had a problem with the villain in Iron Man, Obadiah, that plays Ironmonger. I personally, watching it again, I really didn't have a problem with it. I really like Jeff Bridges a lot. I thought he did a good job with the character, and I definitely felt like he did have a lot of scenes in it. I mean, he was popping in a lot throughout the movie, but I thought he was a good villain. I liked Jeff Bridges' portrayal, but that's really the only negative. The only negative I have is just I just felt like it just felt kind of slow at times. That's really it. It just needed a little bit more juice at certain moments, but that's it. I mean, that's always kind of like the typical thing with the first superhero movie. Like it can feel a little slow because we're all waiting for the moment to happen. So that's pretty much my negative. So let me ask you this, Collin. I mean, I know we've said this a million times, but I'll just ask you again anyway. Oh, actually, wait. I did want to point out. You said about Terrence Howard. I just did want to ask you that, but you pretty much answered that you think Don Cheadle's portrayal of Rhodey is better than Terrence Howard. I mean, yeah. Listen. I really liked Terrence Howard as Rhodey. I thought, to me personally, he just looked more. He kind of looked more the part, I felt, compared to Don Cheadle. But I felt like Terrence Howard embodied that role a little bit. He just had like that military look, and I just thought his portrayal was good. I was kind of disappointed that that they never brought him back into the MCU. But I love what Don Cheadle has done, and I think he's very good as War Machine. I mean, I still think to myself a lot what would have been like if Terrence Howard was in that role, but I still like the decision they made of casting him as the new carry on that part. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. So I know we said this, but do you believe that this, for anyone who wants to get into the MCU, do you think this is the movie to watch before seeing any of the Avengers movies leading up to Endgame?
So yeah, this is a recurrent thing that as you were mentioning, Andrew, that we're talking about is there's been so many MCU movies, and clearly You have the dedicated fans like us that literally will watch anything with Marvel's logo on it. You have the people that like, I want to watch the most important movies. I want to. There's some I could skip, but like I want to watch the majority of them. And then there's the others like I literally want to beeline through it to get to the later movies. I would say Iron Man. Definitely, if you're like us, you're gonna watch Iron Man, obviously. Yeah. But
Totally.
even if you're someone that's like, I want to watch the majority of them, but I don't need to watch every single one. I would say that Iron Man is definitely one that should be on your watch list because there's a lot of growth with Tony Stark. There's a lot of foreshadowing that wasn't even supposed to be set up that pays off in later films. And I do think that this is a movie that if you want to watch, if you're into watching the majority of the MCU movies, definitely check it out. Definitely give it a watch. But I would say if you're someone's like, I literally can only watch a certain amount of films, this is probably not the most dire one to watch. Well, I still think it's worth a watch, but if you really need to like cut films down, I wouldn't disagree with you for cutting this one down simply just because it is the movie to set things up a little bit. And if you kind of need to just kind of start off with a bigger film that kind of gives more information, we'll get into that pretty soon. But Andrew, what do you think? Do you think that Iron Man's one that on people's watch list that they should very much include in the MCU marathon?
Yeah, I absolutely believe this. People should watch the first Iron movie. I think it's important. I mean, I just think we'll get into it later on, but just for some of these origin stories, you should watch them. I feel like it's kind of important too. Even as these movies carry on, I mean, I feel like you do want to have that emotional attachment to these characters along this journey, especially when we get up to Infinity War. You really want to have that emotional impact when you're watching these characters. And yeah, Iron Man is I think it's very important to watch. And it doesn't set up anything, but it gives a good introduction of the MCU world, and particularly the leading man, Iron Man. So
100%. Yeah, I agree.
I think you should watch it, and I guarantee you, if you watch this first, it will definitely be worth it when you watch Endgame, and you know what I mean by it. Because especially...
There's that one line. I would honestly say that what gets me to be in where it's... I was very much on the teetering before I watched Endgame. It was like, do you need to see Iron Man? Well, I was majority yes, but like for the people, it's like, I want to just get to Endgame, especially like last year when it was coming out. Iron Man was one that I was thinking about, like, we can maybe skip that one. But then after seeing Endgame's like, yeah, they not that they justify it, but like, it is very rewarding to watch the Iron Man because of how it's the beginning of Tony Stark's journey. I would say that just kind of going back a little bit real quick to your comment on Terrence Howard, we'll get into recasting in our next MCU movie and what could have been. But I would say that I'm happy with how Don Cheadle was recast. While maybe his first appearance wasn't as strong as Terrence Howard in this movie, he did get the room to really define the character that Terrence Howard didn't get the chance to do.
No, I totally agree on that. It's just that it always kills me, like, when I see, like, in many, trilogy sequels where I always see, like, a recast, and it always just makes me wonder, like, what would have been like if they were in the next movie, But
yeah,
I mean, I really liked what Terrence Howard did, but I'm not criticizing Don Cheadle's work. I think he does a great job portraying Rhodey and turning into War Machine later on. But so I think we've covered that. So I guess we'll get into the score now. All right.
Yep.
So I'll start with you, Colin. I mean, you had this is gonna be tough. I think we're both gonna give this a really high score. I think yeah. Yeah. All right. So I think you're gonna give this movie. I think you're gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10.
So, if you were to ask Colin in 2008, I would have gave this a 9.5 out of 10. My mind was blown that summer. I think that it was like literally the best superhero movie I've ever seen. However, it is 12 years later,
And now you hate
I
it.
would have to give.
I was just kidding.
Yes, a 0. Yeah, this sucks. After all my praises, yeah, this movie sucks because it's so old. But no, I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Especially how, in comparison to how the superhero genre has been defined and how it has expanded into more serious stories and not having to follow what superhero movies were like before. I do think that this is a good movie, but compared to what's to come, it's not one of the best. But
Wow.
by definition, yeah, I honestly think. Really, I did not think I was going to be so controversial, but I think that, which is good. I want a franchise. Honestly, I always feel that any franchise, the first movie should always be the lowest it goes, and it just rises from there, which I think the MCU has definitely done. Literally every time an MCU movie comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, that was better. I have a better one than that. The fact that Iron Man, a movie that I think is really good, I don't have as one of my best in the series, shows just how strong this franchise is like. So Andrew, I blew your mind.
Wow, I am shocked.
No,
you gave it an 8.
So clearly, I know what clearly you're gonna give this a 9 out of 10 because you have minimum faults on it, and I think that you definitely are gonna slash my tires or anything because you're really mad at me.
Wow, an 8 out of wow. I do not think this is a good movie. This is a great movie in the MCU. I think this is great. It's a great introduction to Iron Man and just giving us an idea of what's to come ahead. And Robert Downey Jr. is great. He's memorable as his character. Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr. And Jon Favreau's directing is amazing. He's a really great director. This is absolutely one of my favorite films that he has done to date. So I am going to give, I've been thinking about this all day because I've been going back and forth where I'm going to give it. I am going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 for Iron Man.
I thought so. I thought so. So I'm in the ballpark. I'm off by half. I was honestly.
You're gonna get it.
I really thought you were gonna give it a 10. I really thought you were gonna give it a 10 after the reaction you had on mine.
I almost was gonna give it a 10 out of 10, but it's just, it's a great movie. I just think maybe if the pacing was a little bit, just a teeny bit better, and maybe just a little bit more action, I think I would have given it a 10 out of 10. But I give it a 9.5. It's a solid. It's a solid A. Not an A+, but it's a solid A. So,
well, I really thought we were gonna be on the same page of this. Clearly, how we're both Marvel fans and we're disagreeing at this point. I can't wait to see how this series evolves and how we just completely bash each other for our opinion.
I'm excited. All right. Well, thank you all very much for tuning in today's episode of the Good Bad Score of our review of Iron Man. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can watch us on YouTube or even on SoundCloud as well, however way you prefer it. Tell your friends, neighbors, tell everybody. Share the posts and do all that stuff for us. Subscribe to our channel. And as always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Collin.
I was like, you there? All right, yeah. This is our episode. This is our episode of the Good Bad Score. Have a good day, folks. We'll see you again soon.